Welcome to episode 21 of Dad's Watching Sports. It is Sunday, June 28th. Michael Draper, Kyle Castles, and Matt Kirk, as always. Thank you so much for joining us here on the show. We are very excited about this week's episode. As you guys know, we've kind of thrown out some teasers about who is going to be our mystery guest for the week. Guys, we put out some hints over the past couple of days. I don't know that anybody had any guess, but we are really excited. Later on in the show, we're going to be joined by Peter Burns of ESPN and the SEC Network. He's going to talk some dad stuff. He had a pretty hilarious tweet that he sent out back at the end of May about putting his daughter to bed and the war that went on with that. We're going to talk to him about that. And then also, obviously, about some SEC football, some sports, all the stuff. We're coming back from COVID. We're going to talk to Peter later on in the program. But we appreciate you checking out the show this week. We've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. You can always check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Also, check us out on our new website, dadswatchingsports.com. And we will definitely want to hear from you out there. You can shoot us a comment and all that stuff as well. Guys, we're another week into, really starting to kind of get back into a little bit better regular swing of things. We're looking at, things are starting to re-back open. We're starting to get some talk about sports leagues coming back and things of that nature, which is very exciting. And I know one thing that was very exciting for my family is the outdoor pools finally started opening. We're a family. We enjoy the pool. Last year we'd pick up our kids at least 2 or 3 times a week. And we would go to our local pool here in our neighborhood just to get some energy out, to get some relief, just to have some fun out in the sun, no pun intended. But yeah, so that's something that we love to do. And the pools are starting to reopen. We took a venture to the Y. I won't call out this Y because I enjoy going there. But we went to the Y last week, guys. And I have to tell you this story because, one, I'll be honest, there was a little part of it that was kind of funny. And then there was a part of it that really infuriated me. So I'll set the scene here for you guys. So, me and the family me and Emma and Suzanne and our son Hayden, we're sitting there. We're in the lounge chairs. We're just kind of enjoying the nice day before we jump in the pool. And it's not overly crowded, so you can kind of see really kind of across the landscape there. And this young lady walks up in front of us. And I'm just going to go ahead and be honest and put this out there. She was, I'm going to say probably early 20s, young girl. As I believe my wife said, was not wearing what would be deemed the most appropriate swimsuit for a family centric place like the YMCA. As a husband and dad, I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to focus on what's going on over here with our family. And that can be that over there. And as we start kind of going along throughout the day and are enjoying our pool moment, I look over and there's this gentleman, probably early to mid 70s, definitely very visibly enjoying the new scenery that has come in front of him. And my man doesn't even play around, pulls out his flip phone, and is just holding it right there and taking pictures of this young girl. And again, at first, I kind of chuckle, I'll be honest. And then I'm immediately thinking man, if that was my daughter, because obviously we all have daughters and our daughters are all going to be in that situation one day, probably, whether we like it or not. And then I became infuriated and was like, I cannot believe this old guy is taking pictures of this young girl. And I almost said something and he got up and ended up leaving. And I didn't want to say anything to the girl because I didn't want her to feel embarrassed or draw any unnecessary attention. So we just kind of let it be. But Kyle, any reaction there from the Y pool story of the old man snipping some pics on his flip phone?
So at first, that's a hilarious story.
It was pretty funny.
Until you tell me he's taking the pictures. And I don't know if you were watching me, but I was literally laughing until you said that, and it completely stopped. That is extremely inappropriate. And you would think if you're a 70-some-odd, 67-year-old man, you know better.
Yeah.
That is awful.
Yeah. Well, and I think the fact that he had the flip phone also just kind of played it to the store because he had to flip it open. And then he's like pushing the buttons. And I mean, and again, it was not crowded. So he wasn't able to hide himself from doing it. And poor girl, unfortunately, became some material there. So Matt, what about you? What are your thoughts on our older guy snapping the fingers?
Oh man, it kind of takes me back to a story at the Y. I saw someone doing this at the Y one time when I worked at the Y. Yeah, it's pretty insane. I don't understand people that do that, but I guess, yeah, there's nothing good that can come out of that.
No.
That's terrible, and the guy should probably be kicked out and should never be allowed to come back.
Exactly.
And I'm sure his pacemaker probably went off too.
Yeah. Well, and to be honest with you, I mean, I could be wrong about her age. I mean, she could have been older. I mean, could have been younger than that. And then you're looking at a whole different ball game if it's somebody under the age of 18.
Yes.
And I also worked at the Y, and we've all been around pools, and knowing that kind of stuff just happens. And again, I think for me the biggest thing is, like, I immediately saw that could be my daughter one day, and some old man that's took his pill that morning and I'm not gonna get into all that, but yeah, that just
his blood pressure medicine.
That's right, his blood pressure medicine just really made me mad. So
yeah,
all right, let's shift gears from the old guy at the Y pool, because there's all kinds of stories if you start getting into steam rooms and all kinds of stuff you can get into there, guys. It finally looks like Major League Baseball is coming back. The Players Association and the owners finally kind of came to an agreement. Looks like a 60-game season, 16 teams in a playoff scenario. The one thing I'm pretty excited about, which I think they'll probably eventually just continuing going with, is universal DH. I want to get your take on – we'll get to this in a second, but I really want to get your take on what might happen in extra innings or what will happen. But, Matt, first off, what do you think about this plan? If it goes well, does Major League Baseball have the pressure to really move to this format? Maybe not 60 games, but to maybe an adjusted format in 2021.
I think that baseball plays entirely too many games anyway. I think that a shortened season will do them good. It could also get them more viewers. I know for sure, when knowing that the Rangers are playing less games than what the Dallas Mavericks did, I will for sure be paying more attention to the Rangers. And I love that 16-team playoff. And I think that I think everything's going to work great. The universal DH should already be a thing. But a pitcher getting to hit a home run is pretty dang cool, but it's pretty rare. So
yeah,
it was time.
Kyle, what about you?
Well, I'm everybody knows I'm a Cubs fan. I'm a National League guy, so I hate the idea of universal DH. I understand why they're doing it. I understand that the universal DH is the future of baseball as much as I hate it. You didn't mention the starting extra innings with the runner in scoring position on second base,
yeah,
but
that's what I was going to say. I wanted to get to in just a second, but
so that I think that is that we've been kicking that thing around for, it feels like 5, 6, 7 years now. Baseball has a problem. If you look at the average age of the baseball viewer in the past few years, if I remember right, you're talking mid to late 40s.
I was thinking it was probably the age of the guy that was watching the girls at the pool.
No. Just that guy needs to go away. But I think it was like mid to late 40s, where if you're looking at football, basketball, you're talking mid to late 20s. Baseball's got to find a way to get in touch with the quite frankly, our age people a little bit younger than us. Because I'm the exception and not the rule. I enjoy watching baseball, and I'm a much more of a baseball purist than most. I'd much rather see a 1-0 pitcher's duel than I would a 8-10 slugfest. But that's just me. That's what I enjoy. So yeah, baseball's got to do something. Got to do something to speed up the game and make it more exciting for the younger generation. So I don't like it, but it's the future. It's going to happen anyways.
Well, and I think baseball has done itself a favor in the fact that they're actually going to play. Because we talked about this, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before last, but I think it was the week it was just you and I, Kyle. And
I think so.
If baseball did not get something done, it would have been really hard for them to come back. We saw what happened in '94 with the strike and how long it took them. It took that season, that '98 home run season with McGuire and Sosa to get back. And so it's going to be interesting to see. I think they've made some good moves. The whole having a player on second and extra innings to start the inning is interesting. I get it from a time standpoint and trying to speed up the play of the game, but that just seems like it's not, as a term you use, a baseball purist way of playing the game. So, guys, we're looking at Major League Baseball again. They're limited game season, 16-team playoffs. We're going to put you on the spot here. We'll touch back at the end of the season to see if we are right. Kyle, what's your World Series prediction with this abbreviated season?
So here's the thing. You don't know. I mean, this could be anybody. So the Angels won the World Series last year, and 60 games in, if I remember right, they were dead last in the AL West.
If
they weren't
Nationals,
dead last.
yeah.
What did I say?
The Angels.
Nope, I said the Nationals.
Whatever.
Whatever. The Nationals. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said Angels. Angels in the outfield was on Friday night, and I think that's why I had it
nice.
in my head. Yeah. But the Nationals, they were dead last in the NL East. I think after 60 games, and they came back and won the World Series. So, let's just be really honest. We don't have a clue going into this year because baseball has always been this long game, but I think it just kind of comes down to just sheer talent, and I think I did this with basketball too. Who's just got the talent? And as much as I'd like to say my Cubs do, we don't. So it's Dodgers, Yankees in the World Series, which baseball would love. I mean, you get the two biggest markets in the country, and you get the Yankees, which is the baseball team. And I think the Yankees win it in 7. And I hope my wife didn't hear me because I would be sleeping on the couch tonight if she heard me.
Well, I'm going to be there with you, and I don't mean on the couch. We've done that before.
Whoa!
No,
you want to talk about the guy with the cell phone? That'd be a sight to see. He'd want to take a picture of that.
That's right.
Hey.
That's right. No, I'm going. I do think the Yankees. I mean, I kind of agree with you in terms of. It's just going to be talent is going to prevail. I think it's going to be an ugly start to the season. I think that's going to be the case for a lot of these sports getting back in. It's going to be ugly starts. But I'll go the Yankees out of the American League. And I'm going with the Bravos out of the National League for was it like 96 World Series rematch, 95, 96, something like that.
There, yeah.
Where the Braves and the Yankees faced off against each other. So I'm going Braves and Yankees. Matt, what are your World Series predictions?
Oh, part of me wants to – well, I can tell you for sure out of the American League it's going to be the Yankees. I think that the talent they have is just insane. I think this is the year that they put it all together and be in a shortened season. I think things are going to float their way. But I am down between in the National League, as they call it, between the Dodgers and the Braves. I really think that their young hitter in Atlanta is going to do some things. Mr. Mike Soroka, I think I pronounced his name right. I think he's going to get it rolling, and I think he's going to take them. I'm with Michael. I'm saying Yankees and Braves.
All right, so we got 2 for the Yankees and the Braves, 1 for the Yankees and the Dodgers. It's a little maybe surprising that the Washington Nationals, the Houston Astros, are not in a part of that conversation with any of us. But we'll see if the Astros even make it out of the first couple of games, although their players probably getting pegged early on.
The Astros are going to be holding up a sign.
Well, and I would imagine the Astros they are probably the team in this entire sports world that is the most thankful for COVID-19 because it got everybody to stop talking about their trash cans and their cheating. But it's going to be interesting to see. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here in just a few moments. When we come back, we're going to talk some more stuff here on Dad's Watching Sports. We've got a few more topics for you. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the other sports that are coming up. We've got a Hall of Famer that's retiring from the NBA, and we're going to discuss his career when we come back. And then later on in the show, guys, we're super excited to be joined by Peter Burns of ESPN and the SEC Network. He does some ESPN radio work. He's on SEC Network all the time on SEC Now and just does a phenomenal job for them. And we're going to have him come on to talk about dad life. He's got 2 young kids. He's going to talk a little bit about dad life and then also about some college sports coming up, specifically SEC football. And, we might even get his take on the sports movie bracket. We'll check in as well on that. But we will be right back on Dad's Watching Sports. We'll see you after the break. Thanks for checking out this week's episode of Dad's Watching Sports. We hope you subscribe to our show in Apple Podcast app as well, or wherever you listen to podcasts. But are you following us on social media? Now, whether your thing is Facebook, Twitter, the Gram, YouTube, or yes, even TikTok, you can find some great dad content on all of our pages. Now, enough of this nonsense. We just need to pay Kirk's PlayStation internet bill. Now, back to the show with Matt, Kyle, Michael, and all the fun of Dad's Watching Sports. And we're back here on Dad's Watching Sports. Thanks so much for checking us out. If you're checking us out here, if you're listening to us on like Apple Podcasts or something, wherever you listen to podcasts, I also encourage you to check us out maybe next week on the RTF Sports Network. We're on a couple of different times on their network. You can check us out Mondays at 10 a.m. Central and Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Central. You just go to rtfsportsnetwork.com and you can check out our shows as well as a lot of great shows. They have some really cool content, whether you like NFL, they got a lot of NFL content. There's a professional wrestling show. There's just a really lot of good stuff on the RTF Sports Network, and we hope you go check them out. And while you're there, you might as well listen to our show again because we know you enjoy listening to it so much. And just talking about that, you know, we can't go any further without thanking everybody for downloading the show each week. We know you don't have to listen to this show, and you know, we don't do anything necessarily special here on Dad's Watching Sports other than just talking about our lives and maybe some good stuff that's going on in the sports world. And we appreciate everybody for downloading our show each and every week. We couldn't do it without you, for sure. All right, guys, let's talk a couple of sports topics, and then we'll go to another break. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by Peter Burns of the SEC Network. But before that, let's get into a couple of different things, guys. I didn't think we could go the show without talking about what's been going on in NASCAR the past couple of weeks. Really kind of all over the place with NASCAR. You know, first it kind of came out that they were, not allowing the Confederate flag to be flown anywhere in their events or anywhere near their events. And then we had a situation this past week where in the garage area of one of their drivers, Bubba Wallace, there appeared to be what some people thought was a noose hanging from the garage door. Sparked all kinds of outrage for obvious reasons. And there was an investigation. It kind of came back that had actually been that way for at least since the 2019 season. And that was, you know, for the most part, people didn't think that it was an actually noose. It was just the pull rope on the garage door. Matt, I'll toss it to you first. Just kind of with everything that's going on in NASCAR the past couple of weeks, how do you think they've handled everything? You know, what are your thoughts on what happened with Bubba Wallace, and just what's your take on what's been going on here in NASCAR?
Man, so that Bubba Wallace, that situation is extremely unfortunate. From what they said, it had been there, for a long time, for over a year. October of 2019, October of 2018, it was put there, I guess is when it was, or 2019, I can't remember. But anyway,
what year is it?
2020.
That's right.
But
still,
unfortunately.
For a decade
but yeah,
now.
so that was something that should not have been there, and I'm glad that they, they're taking it out. I would never want anyone to feel, threatened or feel like they're being judged or treated a certain way because of the color of their skin.
Sure.
And I think that NASCAR overall has handled this whole situation greatly. Banning the rebel flag from all their events. I think it's great. I really think that other sports should look at NASCAR and should model what they're doing after them, because NASCAR is known to be a redneck sport. I don't think that's really much of a breaking story here.
Spoiler.
But the fact that they are handling it this well and only having one African American driver in the league, it's hard for me to believe that happened, and it happened to Bubba. But he's handled it with class. NASCAR's handled it with class, and I'm excited to be a NASCAR fan because of that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, I'll agree with you. I think NASCAR, given their past, and some of it warranted, some of it not, the stereotype I think they have done a very good pivot in the most recent future or the most recent history in terms of really taking the social issues and making sure that they align with the way that it should be. I'll be honest, when I finally saw the picture and kind of heard the story about that this had been going on for a year, I thought they jumped the gun. I'll be honest. I thought that was a little overblown, and that is not to take anything away from that if somebody saw something in his garage that looked like a noose, that it shouldn't have been at least investigated. But I think you do the investigation before you start releasing all the information, because I just think it created a little bit more of a story than probably should have been there. I think he's handled it well. I think that on the back end, they've handled it pretty well, but I think that my personal opinion, I think they jumped the gun. I think that it was a little overblown. And now to me, there's a little egg on the face, but they've done a little bit to kind of save that in the past few days. Kyle, I see you kind of nodding your head. What's your thought about that?
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think they jumped the gun, calling it a hate crime before there was any investigation done. And then the FBI comes in and within a day is like, look, this has been up at least since the end of 2019. Obviously it was not tied in, and here's where NASCAR really made its mistake. If you go and you read their first statement, they in a roundabout way kind of blame, like, maybe it's one of the fans or somebody, and you don't do that to your fans, especially not, and Matt, I apologize now, especially not to a dying sport like NASCAR. You can't alienate any of your fans. They're going to alienate fans doing the right thing by banning the Confederate battle flag. Don't start blaming your fans for some of this, especially when in a day the FBI can go, yeah, that's not a thing. But here's the thing. Here's where NASCAR finds itself. It finds itself in a situation where it has to separate itself from its past, because its past is full of, I mean, let's just be really honest. There were racist people at the races, driving the cars, all of those things.
Owning the teams.
Yeah. Like, when you have that past, you have to, you have to separate yourself. So they found this. There was a politician, I can call him names. There was a politician that says that said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And NASCAR found a crisis where they could prove they were not the same as they were, 30, 40, 50 years ago. However, in the end, it makes everyone look bad. It makes Bubba Wallace look bad because it makes him look like he's looking for something to get upset about. It makes NASCAR look bad because they talk bad about their fans, and it makes their fans look bad because NASCAR's pointing to their fans and say, hey, look, they, like, it makes everyone look bad. When at the end of the day, I get it. We are in a society now where you have to, jump out and say, this is it. And take a step back, everyone, and just let facts and let logic and let reason take control, and don't build everything on emotion.
But one thing that I will say NASCAR is doing right. Well, they're doing a lot of things right. But one thing that I can say that unequivocally that they're doing right is, we are talking NASCAR. Everybody is talking about NASCAR right now. And, if you're a believer of the old adage of any press is good press, NASCAR's killing it right now. So Matt, that's what I want to toss to you as someone who's a self-admitted lifetime NASCAR fan. Your sport is in the mainstream more than it probably ever has been, at least in the past 20 years, maybe. What do you think how do you think they go from here? And what do you think is what's the roadmap look like for them through the rest of this season and then going forward?
Man, I think that NASCAR has taken a big hit since Dale Earnhardt Jr. retired 2 years ago. His string of accidents there, concussions, it's left him where he had a really bad time, hard time coming back from his last concussion. In fact, he's had concussion symptoms for almost 4 months after the fact. And the fact that he retired has really hurt him, because he was the most popular driver for 15 years in a row or something like that.
Yeah,
which is insane. And there's really just not that much exciting stuff that happens. They changed their the way the cars were made, and they made them where, they couldn't draft the way they used to at the super speedways, and it just kind of took away from it. I think that this has got NASCAR in the mind, and the fact too that it's only one of 3 sports that are live right now that they can actually, still do, I guess, 4 sports that they can still play currently. So it'll be real interesting to see what happens for the rest of the year. I hope that they can continue their trend of, setting standard for how pro sports teams, how pro sports leagues should handle these kind of situations.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, and one thing that we'll kind of shift gears here in just a second, but one thing it'll be interesting to see how they continue to address any of those things. Cause I guarantee you, while this issue may eventually be put to rest, or the not an issue, but what happened, I don't know that we've seen the last of the Confederate flag movement at NASCAR races, which is incredibly unfortunate. And Kyle, you and I both as Mississippians, and we'll get to that later about them finally deciding to change the flag. That's just really disappointing. But I think that's just something they're going to have to continue to work through. But again, here we are talking NASCAR. So it's good for them to an extent. Guys, another sport that is coming back within the next couple of weeks is the MLS, and what they're kind of doing. They're kind of tying in somewhat similar to what the other sports are doing, but they're actually doing a playoff first. So they're going to come back. They're going to have every team in a playoff. It's kind of a round robin where they'll end up kind of crowning a tournament champion, but it's not the league champion. And then they're going to come back and pick up later on with the remainder of the season, as they had really just kind of gotten the first game kicked off. Kyle, you and I were at the Nashville opening game right before all this kind of hit. So MLS will come back. They do have, the World Cup will be next year. There's a couple of different things else that are going on soccer related. The Premier League is back. Does the MLS, do they have the ability to kind of make any push to get up there and with basketball, baseball, football, and hockey, now that we've been so sports deprived? Or Kyle, are people going to cling on to anything that they can, including Major League Soccer?
Well, I think they will. I think soccer is actually going to start to take off in America as demographics in America continue to change.
Sure.
Largest minority in America now is the Latino population. And they are growing at a rate that they will be the majority of America in the next, if I remember it right, like 50 years. And we all know Latinos love their soccer.
Yeah.
And so because of that, soccer, I think, will continue to grow, probably taking the top spot in this country in the next 50 to 100 years.
Really? You think it'll surpass football?
I think it will, because here's the thing. When you have the majority of America that is Latino, then the majority of America is going to tune into MLS. You know what I mean? I think football, I think, is on the decline, and I hate to say that, being a former coach, former player, but until football can get its hands around the safety issue, football's going to keep going down. Baseball's on the decline. I mean, that leaves soccer and basketball. Hockey is not an American sport. It's not a sport that Latinos really get into. So, soccer and basketball kind of will be, I believe, the big two in the next 50 to 100 years.
Yeah, guys, we've got to go here to a quick break here in just a minute. But before we do, Vince Carter is retiring from the game of basketball. The Atlanta Hawks not going to be a part of the NBA coming back as they were their record was not good enough. Matt, any thoughts on Vince Carter retiring, maybe some of his best moments, and do you think he's a Hall of Famer?
I think that, for me, I would say the between the legs dunk, but I would also say whenever he hit 9 threes on the Sixers in the playoffs, in the conference semifinals, that was the biggest moment for me, and I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Kyle, you think he's a Hall of Famer?
Not a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, but his big legacy is he puts basketball on the map in Canada, and without him, I don't know that we see Tristan Thompson and Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, he's that 2000 dunk contest when the All-Star weekend was in Toronto, Air Canada, really put him on the upward trajectory, and I think he will be a first-time ballot Hall of Famer as well. I think he's changed the sport that much. Guys, we got to go to a quick break. When we come back, Peter Burns of the SEC Network and ESPN is going to be joining us to talk all things dad life and a little bit about some college football. We'll be right back on Dad's Watching Sports. Thanks for checking out this week's episode of Dad's Watching Sports. We hope you subscribe to our show in Apple Podcast app as well, or wherever you listen to podcasts. But are you following us on social media? Now, whether your thing is Facebook, Twitter, the Gram, YouTube, or yes, even TikTok, you can find some great dad content on all of our pages. Now, enough of this nonsense. We just need to pay Kirk's PlayStation internet bill. Now, back to the show with Matt, Kyle, Michael, and all the fun of Dad's Watching Sports. Welcome back to Dad's Watching Sports, the show all about the lives of us as dads and talking about the biggest news in sports. Michael Draper, Kyle Castles, and Matt Kirk, as always. And thank you for checking us out again this week. Again, you can check us out. We've got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it, we're on it. And we also have our new website, dadswatchingsports.com. You can check us out there. We've got some cool stuff. We obviously highlight each episode. We have some of the causes that we give back to. We also do some of the cool stuff that we do on the side. Like I actually just put up a DYID, a do-it-yourself dad project that I was able to take on over the past couple of days. And check it out, dadswatchingsports.com. We'd love to have some input from the fans out there as well about some things you would like to see on not only on the website, but then also on the show. So, guys, welcome back from the break. And we are excited to be joined by Peter Burns of ESPN and the SEC Network. Peter, thanks so much for joining us on the show. How are you, man?
I'm doing, it's crazy because you guys have the podcast, Dad's Watching Sports, and we're like, well, we're not watching any sports right now. And then, so my Sunday morning ESPN radio show is called Best Week Ever, and it's been the most awkward name for a show over these last 3 months because it's been like the worst week ever every time we come up on a Sunday. So
I know,
it's a weird world that we're living in right now. So it's not only that, but then also the same thing is why I was so excited to do the podcast with you guys. It's like we're all a bunch of dads too. So it's like, all right, in our normal job, we have this world and we try to put on these Superman capes to be dads. And of course, the wives are even 10 times more important than we could ever possibly be too. So it's crazy times right now, boys.
It is. Yeah. We started this podcast about 2 months before COVID hit and the sport stopped. So yes, we kind of aptly changed the name for a couple of weeks to Dad's Not Watching Sports. It's been a wild time for sure. And I'm sure it has for you as well. Well, tell us, again, this is a show all about being a dad. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your family. And then I want to get to a specific tweet that you sent out a while back.
Yeah, well, that anytime somebody has me on a podcast, I go, let's talk about one of your tweets. It's not only a good thing. So I'm happy that it was a dad tweet that got here. But so I've got two kiddos. I've got my daughter Beau, B-A-U-X. We named her after a little Cajun spelling. Yeah. She was born on Halloween of 2017, so she's a little bit over 2.5. And then my son Thomas was actually born this last Halloween. So we got actually 2 Halloween babies. A boy and a girl, and so I'm new to it. And I'll tell you what, man, every single one of my buddies over at ESPN said, all right, having one kid changes you, but having 2 is a completely different level. Like, you are no longer playing just zone defense. You can double team. Like, you're playing man-to-man, and it's a whole heck of a lot tougher. My wife always said, like, yeah, everybody who says you have 2 kids, it's now the dad has to get off the bench and actually play a whole lot more. And I'm like, yeah, I was pretty good when I was just, holding the clipboard, but man, two's got my number here lately.
Yeah, it's a game changer. There's no doubt about it. We've got a 3-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. Kyle's got 3 kids. Matt's got just 1, but she's a handful there as Matt, I believe.
Matt, stay at 1 for now, buddy. Matt, enjoy everything that you're doing in life right now with 1 kiddo. Make sure that you just, every single night you pray, you're like, my friend, the one kid life is all right now.
I'm for sure enjoying having my wife being able to help me, so I'm sure we'll stay like that for a while.
Smart man.
So Peter, I got to get to this tweet that I ultimately ended up messaging about. So to kind of put it in context for our listeners out there, it's a GIF of what I believe is Arnold Schwarzenegger from Predator. He's putting on like the camo on his face, getting ready for battle. And your tweet says, me prepping to put my 2.5-year-old daughter to bed each damn night, which resonated with me completely because we all go through that. So just tell us a little bit about that struggle that we all are all familiar with.
Well, it's crazy because, my daughter for the longest time was the greatest sleeper ever. Like, she slept through the night right off the bat. We're like, man, this is great. Probably the other reason why we decided to have a second kid so quick. But like all the way up for like 2 years and 3 months, it would be like, all right, night, daddy, night, Bo, and kiss her good night. And I'd say sweet dreams, and she'd go to bed. And then when she hit 2 years and 4 months, all of a sudden it was World War III. It was, no, I want to do this. And it was an absolute hostage negotiation situation every single night. And it's like, and I struggle too, because I'm like, there's no game plan here. And I'm trying, I'm like, sometimes you kill it with kindness and then I get rolled over. And I don't want to be the mean dad either, but then sometimes you have to as well. So I'm still trying to perfect that, and trust me, now we're in the stage where she only wants to be rocked by mom. And it's brutal because I want to be able to help. I want to be able to do it. My wife's like, no, just let's not put up the fight. Like, let's let her win. And sure enough, she does. And so, it's World War III every single night in our household right now.
Yeah. And well, as someone who recently went through that same, our daughter was a great sleeper, and then we went through that same thing. It does get better. I promise you, they kind of eventually get out of it.
Any advice? Like what worked for you guys?
Stay firm and consistency. Consistency is key. And we even, like, at one point in time, I said, okay, our daughter's name is Emma. I said, okay, Emma, daddy's going to be outside your room for 15 minutes, just till you calm down. Then it moved to, I'm going to be on the stairs, and then, hey, I'm going to be on the couch. And so, but just that consistency for me, Kyle, I don't know if you have anything to add. Your kids are a little bit older. I know you've probably been through it as well.
Yeah, my 5-year-old Wrigley, he's pretty good about just going to bed and always has been. But Jack, the middle one, he's 3, and about the same time, Peter, that kind of 2.5-year-old time frame, he got to where he did not want to go to bed. I had all 3 of them tonight by myself. It was girls' night, so my wife went out to dinner with some friends, and I had all 3 of them. Thank God for Lunchables. Shout out to Lunchables for supper. So I fed the boys Lunchables, but when it was bedtime or bath time, my 3-year-old started kicking the couch because he did not want to go up and take a bath and go to bed. So yeah, I think Mike's right. Be firm, be consistent, and once they calm down, be soft and let them know you still love them.
Yeah,
and have alcohol ready.
Yes,
and that's
absolutely. There's nothing better than a good stiff drink at the end.
Yes, yeah, that is without a doubt. Months ago, we did a sports movie bracket. We ranked our top 32 sports movies of all time. I want to get your take on what our final 4 and who we ended up getting a pick for our winner was. So our final 4 was Coach Carter, 42, The Story of Jackie Robinson, Friday Night Lights, and Tin Cup. Tin Cup making a Cinderella run to the Final 4 with 42 taking on Friday Night Lights in the championship and 42 taking the crown. Any thoughts on our sports movie bracket for best sports movie of all time?
Well, first of all, I'm just excited that Tin Cup made the cut.
Yes.
I actually lived in Kingwood, Texas, which is right outside of Houston, where they filmed Tin Cup at. And so I was in high school working my first job over at Kingwood Country Club when they were filming that. And so I would always help, Kevin Costner and Don Johnson and Cheech take their clubs to their car after they were filming every single night. So it was great. It was just hilarious to watch those guys. Like all the maintenance workers loved Cheech, and they were probably they were probably doing illegal things with them every single night. I forgot that this is a dad podcast. So I can't say too much.
That's right.
And it was great. And Costner was dating one of the members' daughters, and it was just nuts. And so we would see these guys all the time. And just as a former college golfer myself, I just love Tin Cup. So for me, I love the shout out to Tin Cup. Yes. Although I do have a little issue with Friday Night Lights. Okay. The movie being there. Like I could see the television show, which was awesome outside of the writer's strike year. The movie was okay. I don't know. I almost need to see the whole bracket. I mean, I need to go back and find out the whole bracket for you guys, because 42 is great. Jackie Robinson's story is awesome.
Peter, we actually broke it up. We had a baseball side, a basketball quadrant, football, and other. And so out of football came Friday Night Lights, where we all know Any Given Sunday probably should have been the best football movie, right?
Well, and you know what's funny? Brian's song is also pretty good, but I'm thinking
I said that, but they wouldn't throw it in.
Really? Well, I would have thought that it would at least made the bracket.
Yeah, blame the other two, not me.
But you're right. Football, there hasn't been a ton of great. I mean, The Blind Side was pretty decent.
Yeah.
But basketball, Coach Carter was a good one, but I'm surprised Hoosiers didn't win just because of how storied that one is.
Yeah, Hoosiers was definitely in the field. I think it got picked off early, if I remember correctly. All right, one more question I have, then I'm going to toss it to Kyle for a quick question. Obviously you mentioned it, and we've all talked about it. We haven't had really mainstay sports over the past couple of months. What's the one thing that you've missed the most about sports being on?
I think just the normalcy of it, as stupid as that sounds, it was just part of the routine. I think, for us, like I would have just been at the College World Series in Omaha. And so my whole life calendar is built around sports, thinking, all right, well, I have SEC baseball tournament. And after SEC baseball tournament, I go and call the SEC golf championships. And then we go to Omaha for the College World Series. And then we're off for 2 months. And then we have media days, like just the normalcy of the calendar. And I think that's kind of, for me personally, what I've missed. But I think it's just the idea of how big sports was a distraction from everything else. I mean, we've had to deal, and in a weird way, it's almost been good that we've been able to pause sports to a certain extent, because it's caused me to read up on a whole lot more than things that I've ever thought I would have ever read up about, whether it's current events or politics. But it does make you realize that it was just such a great distraction to be like, I don't want to worry about work. I don't want to worry about what's going on in the news. I want to turn on a NASCAR event or a golf tournament or a baseball game just to turn my mind off of it. And I think that's probably what I miss the most. And hopefully we're not going to miss it much longer. I mean, obviously with college football, hopefully around the corner, if we don't have it, I don't know what my wife's going to be crazy with me hanging around the house so much. She's sick and tired of me playing Fortnite as it is. So.
So you mentioned college football, and that's kind of where this next question is going. Football season starts in January with the off season, and the players are getting ready, and we've had a big empty time here with nothing going on and kids not being on campus or anything. And so my question for you, I think you probably have a better feel than I do on this. Are we going to see a drop in the level of play in college football this year, or maybe even more injuries or something like that due to the restricted practice time due to COVID?
No, I mean, it's a great question, because, I mean, you go back and look at LSU's season last year. LSU won the national championship last year in spring. And what I mean by that is that they had perfected this brand new offense so many times. By the time fall ran through, they were just going through the motions, and that's why they played so damn well. And so for me, I think the change in the way the game is played this year is that it lends to more success for like a Georgia team. And what I mean by that is a team that has a ton of defense coming back, that there's not a whole lot of changes on that side of the ball. I think it is a little bit more defensive minded this year, simply for the fact of you didn't have a spring. So you didn't have to go through all these brand new concepts with these teams and work so much on the training. And then think about it as well too, that if all of a sudden they do play the season and hey, you got your quarterback out or 2 offensive linemen are out because they're being quarantined for a couple of weeks, that's even tougher on the communication. Anytime anybody gets injured, your offense is going to struggle quicker than traditionally your defense, for no other reason, just because of the timing of it. But I'm a firm believer that it will be a little bit more defensive minded, because remember last year in the SEC, it felt like we were playing Big 12 football with everything about it kind of spread out. And so that'll be tough, especially for Hell State fans, because you bring in Mike Leach in, who wants to bring all offense. As I see the Stark Vegas gear that you're rocking. Same thing for Ole Miss fans too, with Lane coming in. So I would say this, even before though the guys of pandemic, this is going to be the most wide open the SEC would have been in probably the last 2 decades. There was at least probably 4 or 5 teams that I could make a legit argument that they could be playing for, a college football playoff spot, or at least could win in Atlanta. And I can't remember the last time I could say that about maybe more than 2 or 3 teams, much less 5.
All right, y'all heard it here first. Peter Burns says take the under. Go ahead, Matt.
Take the under. Yeah, I'm hitting the under hard.
That's right.
I'm sorry, it's a rookie mistake.
No, dude. Seriously, how many times we've done this on these conference calls with these coaches and stuff like that, where we're like, all right, now we're joined by Nick Saban, and Saban starts talking, and then all of a sudden you're like, and you don't want to interrupt Coach Saban because you don't want to be like, because you can't just say, hey, Nick, are you muted? And then,
Come on, Nick.
Trust me, it happens a lot.
That works out well then, and it happens to the best of us, you know.
There you go.
So, in your time, what's an example that you've seen where you've seen a positive way to introduce kids to sports without it seeming like you're trying to force it on them?
Yeah, I mean that my kids are still so young. We haven't had an opportunity to do that yet, and I ask myself that question every single day about I want to get them involved because it was such a big part of my life, but at the same point I don't want to burn them out because I saw that as well. And I think honestly, the SEC baseball tournament was so much fun each and every year because you got a chance to see dads bringing their families and their kids over to events, and just watching those events, you kind of got a gauge on how you can see how much your kid is going to enjoy the game. Is it all right, we got to go to this baseball game, or we got to go to this softball or this gymnastics event or whatever it may be, or do they have a vested interest in it? And so, I've talked to my wife about it. Like when raising our kids, we want to take them to as many games as possible, even if it's just local high school games, or we live here in Charlotte where our studios are at. Charlotte football games, they're not SEC games, but I want my daughter to go to those and be like, all right, this is the experience you're going to have, and kind of get them acclimated that way. So I think that's why this whole situation of COVID and coronavirus and not being able to have sporting events right now is brutal in so many different ways, because the kids can't go to games and enjoy that with their family, which is a great bonding experience. Even more so, like some of the greatest lessons I ever learned on hard work and ethics, and even social equality, was playing on teams where I didn't care who you were, how much money you had, who your dad was, and what you thought politically. Can we win a ball game together? And the fact that the kids right now in a lot of places aren't getting that opportunity to do it, I think it's just brutal, especially if you got a kid that's 7, 8, 9, 10 years old right now.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I can't wait to take my daughter to a game, a baseball game or a basketball game or a football game or anywhere really up in Fayetteville.
Yeah.
To watch Razorbacks, and with the Woo Pig Suey, I figured that'd be pretty cool. I can teach her that before we go, and she can call the hogs.
There you see, that's the way to do it. Now, she might not see a bunch of wins in Coach Pittman's first year, but that's all right. Make sure
Nice.
That's okay.
Make sure she goes
Shots
out to
fired.
No, that's all right. Make sure she goes out to Baum Stadium and watch Dave Van Horn's baseball squad, because next year, because of the Major League Baseball draft, Van Horn and the Razorbacks are going to be loaded. But I joke. I do like Coach Pittman, so I'm pulling for him. They were just in a tough spot with Coach Morris, and then trying to change that lineup. But Pittman, I think the only person happier that he has the job that he has, other than me, and I do my dream job, is Coach Pittman, and it's enthusiastic, man. Like he's so much fun to talk to each and every week.
Yeah, I enjoy listening to all of his pressers. Every time I get a chance to listen to him speak, I do for sure.
He just seems like a real dude. Like he just seems like one of us. He's that's just living his dream and having fun coaching football. And it's hard not to pull for a guy like that.
Absolutely.
All right, Peter, I got one more question. So we've seen Mississippi State's Colin Hill come out and talk about changing the Mississippi State flag, which I saw the headline just before the show started that Mississippi has, at least the state Congress has passed to change the flag, and the governor says he's going to sign that bill. We've also seen Chubba Hubbard and Hillman, Mike Gundy, Coach Gundy, sit down and have a conversation. Do you anticipate seeing more of these types of things as players, as these young guys decide they want to use their voice? Or do we think this is kind of like it's big for now, and give it a year, 2 years, and we're going to kind of go back to what's been normal?
I think that it came at a perfect time for no other reason that you saw how much power college athletes always had. And I was surprised that it's taken them this long to use it. I mean, I had said, and trust me, people weren't happy when I said this on my show a couple of months ago, before the pandemic had started. I said, if I was Trevor Lawrence or if I was Justin Fields, maybe I don't even play this upcoming season. I get a bunch of people together and say, hey, we're not going to take the field unless you hammer out a name, image, and likeness case for us. I said, I guarantee if you had Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence and they said, you know what, I'm calling 30 of my buddies, you call 30, you call 30, we're just not playing week one, I guarantee you name, image, and likeness would have been hammered out immediately.
Yep.
And so I thought that they would use it for there, which is important. And then you saw what Kylan Hill and see all other players with Chuba Hubbard and whatnot talking about with Black Lives Matter and about different things that they had going on in their lives, and I felt like that was important. I mean, listen, the Kylan Hill thing was huge. The star running back in Mississippi State, and because the SEC said you need to change the flag or you might not get any SEC events. Well, they weren't getting big SEC events to begin with. Then the SEC came through, or the NCAA says, well, you can't even host baseball or women's basketball events, and those are huge in those cities as well too. Starkville and Oxford as well. But it wasn't until Kylan Hill had said, I just won't play, and I'll transfer out, that it put a timestamp on it. It said, okay, you can't kick the can until next March. You need to make a decision right here, right now. And listen, there's a lot of people going back and forth on if Kylan Hill should have done that. I think it was a no-brainer just simply because the 8 public universities didn't fly the flag right now because it was so divisive. And even Mike Leach, who's not exactly known for being the most liberal of people, said, listen, you got a state flag here. It divides people. It doesn't unite. Let's get something that unites everybody. And so, people don't like it because it's never been done before. But the players have always had this power. They just never collectively been able to group it together. And now you're seeing that. And that's another reason why the name, image, and likeness thing is going to happen next year, because they are going to get their rights. And it's even more clear about how important they are because, hey, if college football goes away or college athletics goes away, there's billions of dollars that go away to these towns and these cities and these networks and these employees as well too. So they deserve these rights, and they're going to get them soon. So we have a Razorback fan. I'm just making sure we got a Razorback fan. We have a Mississippi State fan, and we got a what? And what are you?
Okay, so I'm a Kentucky fan, but I'm a Bulldog by schooling. I went to Mississippi State as well, so I'm kind of a mixed breed, I guess you could say.
So wait, how the hell does that happen? How do you go to Mississippi State, but yet you're going to claim the Kentucky Wildcats here? I need to hear this story.
Yeah, so I grew up a UK fan. My dad's from Kentucky. Grew up a UK fan my entire life, but I lived in Mississippi.
Okay,
so
that's fair.
So I will say the 2 or 3 times the Kentucky played State there in Starkville, I was sitting in the student section with my blue on, which was very unpopular at the time. So.
I will say this. One of the guys that I didn't necessarily love right off the bat when I got over the network, because I just didn't know him real well, was Mark Stoops. And now he's one of my favorite coaches because he always has this, it is a blue-collar mentality, but this kind of chip on the shoulder. And he's just secretly he's got a ton of personality, and he's just a good dude. Like, if you had to rank the guys that you want to go to Las Vegas with or just have a couple of beers with, as much as people will say, oh, okay, it might be Mike Leach or it's Lane, Stoops might be top 3 on my list because he's just a genuinely great guy, and he's done a good job of pivoting and building that program. So I'm happy for Stoops, and happy that the guys here that the other Mississippi State fans are going to give you some hell when they hear that story coming up on the podcast. So.
Oh yeah,
and the son of a bitch can coach.
He's great, man. What he's been able to do with that football program, I never thought I would see.
No,
never thought.
No,
so that he does. Well, Peter, thanks a lot, man. We really appreciate it. This has been the episode 21 of Dad's Watching Sports. Thanks so much for listening. We will see y'all next week. Take care.